I'm Cindy Wilczak, and I'm professor and chair of anthropology at San Francisco State. My research is in bioarchaeology, or the analysis of human skeletal remains. And I'm part of an international collaboration, the Coimbra, Portugal Working Group, and we study entheses, which are the attachments of muscle, ligament, and tendons to bone. An unchanged entheses, like the biceps, looks solid and smooth. Changes that can occur are things like bone formation, bone breakdown, and porosity. The changes occur in response to age, disease, and other stresses. And the goal is to separate these changes from changes due to activity so we can reconstruct or say something about what the physical activities were in past populations. I currently have 2 students working on entheses. One is looking at the correlations of entheses in the hind limb to the ruggedness of terrain. And the other student is working on a project that will do 3D digitizations of the entheses to look at changes in size and shape. In paleopathology, I've worked on a lot of projects. One looked at hyperostosis frontalis internus, or HFI. And this is abnormal bone formation on the inside of the frontal bone of the skull. In modern populations, it's found most frequently in postmenopausal women, and it's associated with obesity and diabetes. It's rare before the 20th century, and I and 2 of my colleagues described the only cases found in the pre-contact Americas, and this was at a 9th through 10th century site called Pueblo Bonito in New Mexico. The increases in HFI with industrialization seem to relate to dietary shifts and increasing food availability. It's thought to be representing high status individuals who had access to lots of resources. My students' work in paleopathology includes cribra orbitalia, or lesions on the roof of the eye orbit, and these are associated with nutritional stress, and studies of non-lethal blunt force trauma in the skull as an indicator of interpersonal violence. You're welcome to contact me to discuss potential projects and to talk more about our program. I wish you the best of luck in finding a perfect match for your graduate studies.
My name is Doug Bailey. I'm an archaeologist here at San Francisco State. Originally, I studied classical archaeology, and then I started studying prehistoric archaeology. I ran a lot of large excavations in countries like Romania and Bulgaria. We asked really big questions like, what's the origins of agriculture or the origins of sedentism? Very traditional stuff. But more and more, my work then and my work now here at San Francisco State is about the archaeology of art, prehistoric art, idols, figurines, rock art, cave art. What does this art mean? Can we even interpret it? Do we know what the people in the past thought about it? But at the same time, as I was working in those countries, and as I started working on our own communities here, I came to realize that archaeology is an inherently political process. So a good definition of archaeology is the use of the past and the present. And usually these are political uses. Who claims land as theirs? Who has privileged access to resources? How do objects like monuments or museums create those political imbalances? Now, along the way in my career, my interest in archaeology as politics and my interest in archaeological art, they combined. So at San Francisco State, we're developing a new discipline. We call it art archaeology. In it, we use the past, literally pieces of it, to make new artistic work that provokes questions about the political and social challenges of today's world. Things like homelessness, things like economic inequality. It's exciting work, exploring old worlds in new ways. For example, one of our recent graduate students who worked with me, he wrote an amazing thesis on the gardens of the Japanese American internment camps during the Second World War. Extraordinary, groundbreaking work. This is the kind of work I'm doing with our graduate students. If it's the kind of work you want to do, shoot me an email and we'll start a conversation.
Hi, I'm Meredith Raveschneider. I've been at San Francisco State University since 2017, and I teach the graduate seminar in archaeology. I'm a historical archaeologist whose research integrates method and theory from medical anthropology, archaeology, and history. My research sites to date include the Caribbean island of St. Croix, the San Francisco Bay Area, and Southern California. My research focuses on the innovative strategies that individuals develop in order to enable their well-being under oppressive institutions. My current project at the Presidio of San Francisco investigates public health policies of the US Army Medical Department and how Army discourses of health shaped broader national understandings of citizenship. I'm also in the early stages of developing a new contemporary archaeology project that focuses on the community of Slab City in Southern California. Known by residents as the last free place, the community is comprised of a subculture of military veterans, artists, and anarchists. My research questions include how residents engage with the archaeology of the landscape and how they create a fully sustainable community in an environment of extreme scarcity. As an archaeology faculty advisor in the graduate program, I'm interested in working with ambitious graduate students whose research interests broadly include heritage, material culture studies, and also archaeology. My graduate students have conducted archaeological studies of Japanese incarceration camps, have studied sartorial practices at the Presidio of San Francisco, and have conducted collections-based research at historic period sites. Graduate students I have mentored at SFSU also have a strong record of academic and professional success. They have been recognized for their academic achievements at the university. They have accepted jobs and internships at respected organizations, and they have been accepted to anthropology PhD programs at prestigious universities. And while we are remote this academic year, I'm continuing to work with my current MA students, and I'm also welcoming new students. If you are interested in working with me, please send me an email letting me know more about your research interests, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you and all the best.
My name is Jeffrey Schoenberg, and I am a lecturer in the Department of Anthropology, and I'm also one of the undergraduate coordinators for the department. Currently, I'm teaching the writing class Guar, and our topic this semester, which I came up with sort of following the political upheavals in this country right now, is we're doing the anthropology of policing. I'm also teaching the seminar in cultural anthropology to the graduate students. And also the third class I'm teaching this semester is anthropological filmmaking. I actually got my master's at San Francisco State, and I ended up doing as my creative work project, my final master's thesis, a project on a community of homeless heroin addicts in San Francisco. And which became, of course, my thesis. And eventually that became a book that I co-published called Righteous Dope Fiend, co-authored with the anthropologist Philippe Bourgois. Following doing the work on Righteous Dope Fiend, and when I went back to grad school, I ended up working on my dissertation, which is now a manuscript, on homicide and gentrification in West Oakland, California. And I'm looking at two different homicides of two young men that occurred on my block, on the block that I lived on for 12 years. So along with that, I'm also I continue to work work on subjects around drugs and homelessness. And I've been doing some work in Berkeley, California, in one of the encampments here, as well as doing some work in San Francisco around issues of COVID and homelessness and the relationship between COVID and the risks of course, that homeless people are exposed to, within the current pandemic. I've had some grad students that I've been working with, some who are some filmmakers, some interested in photography, while others who actually want to continue working, especially in the field of drugs, looking at issues of harm reduction, or just in general looking at issues of poverty, extreme poverty and homelessness, and in the United States, where a majority of my work happens to be located.
Hi, I'm Martha Lincoln. I'm a cultural and medical anthropologist, and I've been teaching at San Francisco State University since 2017. In the MA program, I teach the core course in cultural anthropology, and I also teach the seminar on the craft of anthropological writing. As a medical anthropologist, my fundamental perspective is that disease is never simply a biological event. Disease has social and cultural meaning, as well as personal meaning for the ill individual and people who are close to them. So all my research proceeds from that premise. My recent work addresses the politics of infectious disease in Vietnam, where I've examined how historical events like the Socialist Revolution, the American War, and the country's more recent transition away from socialism have influenced the way that people think about health, medicine, and science. And I'm completing a book based on this research now. With Laura Mamo at the Health Equity Institute, I'm a co-director of the Science and Technology Studies Hub at SF State. We bring together scholars and advanced graduate students who are developing research on social issues that are related to science, technology, the environment, computing, and medicine. This year, our fellows in the STS Hub include anthropology faculty members Meredith Raveschneider and Alyssa Fisher, and grad advisees might want to keep this opportunity in mind. Since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, I've been in conversation with science writers and journalists about the social and cultural dimensions of our experience with the novel coronavirus. And my comments have appeared in venues including the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Atlantic, the Boston Globe, and the BBC. As a faculty advisor in the graduate program, I'm interested in working with motivated graduate students whose interests lie broadly in the intersection of cultural and medical anthropology. I've mentored students who work on a range of research topics, from women's rights in Armenia to alternative birth practices in Sonoma County to the use of essential oils as medicine. Though we are remote in academic year 2020 to 2021, I'm continuing to work very closely with my advisees, including new students who are incoming to the program, and we continue to host events and build community in the department. If you're interested in working with me as an MA student, please feel free to send me an email sharing something about your background and letting me know more about the research you'd like to develop. It will be a pleasure to be in touch. Thanks and good luck.
Hello, my name is Peter Balala, and I direct the emphasis in visual anthropology at San Francisco State. Visual anthropology has had a long history in this department. I actually studied with one of the founders of the field here when I was a student, John Collier. And I then went on to Temple University, where I did my PhD work in visual and ended up in a Maasai homestead where, with colleague Richard Cross, we shot 7,000 still photographs and recorded 40 hours of audio. After I got my degree, I spent many years working with that ethnographic material. Living on the East Coast, I was teaching part-time, but I also had my own film company. And I tried to make at least one ethnographic film each year in Egypt and Haiti, in upstate New York, Central America, and Peru. When I returned back to San Francisco, most of my filmmaking has taken me to East Africa again, where with Len Kamerling, I returned to the same family homestead where I'd worked as a student, and we shot the long end of the 30-year divide and how that family had changed as a result of the loss of cattle and the making of pastoralism illegal by the Tanzanian government.
Rongane pe yepe bulu atu hali fulani ni bulu atu hali apa ni tu bulunya.
In the past 10 years, I've also returned to my interest in AIDS education films, where the HIV rate is about 5% in Tanzania. And before my crew and I came along, there were no AIDS films in the Maasai language in distribution. We produced 8 of them, which are now being used. Several of my recent students have also pursued applied visual anthropology, working in Juarez in Cameroon, Tanzania. Several students have gone on to PhDs, several work with NGOs, and several either own or work in their own production companies. If you're interested in the focus of this work, please feel free to send me an email and we'll have a Zoom. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Fisher, and welcome to the graduate program in the Department of Anthropology at San Francisco State University. My work with hip hop activism and cultural arts brought me to the Bay Area as I worked with music and political organizing in West Oakland, as well as at the Hip Hop Archive Research Institute at Stanford University with Marcelina Morgan, prior to coming to join the faculty at San Francisco State in 2008. I studied anthropology at Washington University in St. Louis and at the University of Florida in Gainesville. I research and write about Black popular culture, music, and art in Japan, as well as the United States. My current work is titled Black, Femme, and Animated, as I explore movements, manga, and music as expressed through people who I term Black Lives Matter artists, who are translating their political worlds using the global popular cultural media of anime, comics, manga, and of course, music. One of the delights of working with graduate students is that it's collaborative, it's a dialogue, and we contribute our collective knowledge and apply it to social change and solutions as we work collectively for our human growth and development. Some of the students that I've worked with in the past have studied topics such as Black feminist digital activism and the study of racialized discourse in sports social media. I look forward to hearing what you want to study with the diverse and interdisciplinary faculty and graduate program that we offer here at SF State. Feel free to email me. I look forward.